It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z. Garcia.
Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at an expansion to Deus, which is a card-driven sort of Civ-light game called Deus Egypt. Deus Egypt here introduces a few new things. It's sort of modular, and it's mainly a bunch of new cards, okay? In this overview, I'm not going to be telling you how to play Deus. I'm not going to be showing you the board in this. I'm not going to be showing you basically any of that, so go check out a video for that if you need to find out how the original plays and you're curious about the expansion. But I am going to show you what comes in this box, some of the new concepts and ideas featured in here, and then we'll come on back and I'll tell you if I think this box makes this one a better game. Here we go. So here's everything that comes with Deus Egypt, except the manual, of course, which looks like that. The idea is that you are getting a new deck of cards, okay? And you are getting an entire replacement deck, if you would. So this is all the cards from the original game, and what you are getting here is the same number of cards, all new cards, as a replacement to this deck. However, you don't have to replace the entire deck. You can just remove some parts of it and replace them with the new cards. And so, for example, let's say I want to use just the new military cards. I would go through this deck, I would remove all of the military cards in here, which are, I don't know, somewhere in here, they're down here. I would remove all of these, and I would replace them with the new ones, shuffle up the deck, play with that. Now, some of these bring some new tokens, as you can see here across the bottom, into play, as well as some new concepts, of course. But that's the basic idea. You can play with all these. You can play with just some of them. You can experiment. Eventually, you will find just the right combination you like, and you can just play with that if you want, okay? So what do these do? Well, let's start from over here, and I'll tell you sort of as a general idea what it is they each change, okay? The temples and several other decks have a new stripe across the top of the card that is a one-time power. You can play it, and you can activate that once per game power from either after you trigger all of the powers on the cards or before. So you can do it right away and then trigger the powers on the cards, or you can trigger all of them and then do this thing. The temples are quite simple. They'll give you some victory points straight up. Across the top they'll say, usually like this, these say 4 victory points. And then they'll look for some in-game trigger and give you something else, or the cards behave differently. Like this card says, for example, from now on, this card acts as 1 clay that you may use only to construct buildings, okay? Things like that, or they'll look for triggers and satisfy them. So they behave quite differently from the original temples. We have over here, these buildings will give you the scribe token. And when you build one of them, you will put the scribe token underneath that building. When you build a new one, the scribe token will move. And then the powers have to do with the scribe token. So whatever the scribe token is under will modify what it is you get. So for instance, this one says, gain 1 victory point per region you occupy that is the same type as the region with your scribe token. So that's how those work. They do not have the stripe across the top, these. Over here we have the ships, and they do have a stripe across the bottom, and they change something pretty fundamental in the game. This little chart is sort of a market. Normally in the base game, every 1 token you want to buy because you don't have it or because you want to keep it is 4 gold. So you can replace any 1 resource with 4 gold, and at the end of the game you get 2 VPs if you have the most of that thing. Now, they all start in the middle here, but you can, with these cards, shift how much resources cost and how many victory points you get at the end of the game if you have the most of that. And so, for example, this card right here says, choose a resource across the top, okay? Choose a resource, decrease its market value by 1 space. So I can take wheat and make it really cheap, let's say, because someone else over there is sitting on a bunch of wheat, or because I need to buy it, or I can make it more expensive because I intend to sell it. In fact, a great move with this card is, well, not this card because it's decrease, but some say increase. You can increase wood, and then the bottom power says, well, okay, now you can sell sets of wood. If I did that, I would make a bunch of money, right? So that's how those work. They bring a market into the game. These over here are going to bring the concept of these barks into play. You start with some, and these hold your resources. You can only keep from turn to turn as many resources as you can store. This is a 3 space, they have 2 space, and 1 space barks. And the power across the top of the cards will give you more. You start with some, and this one says you gain a size 3 bark tile, and some will say gain a size 1, etc. That's how they work. And then the powers will do things like choose one of your production buildings, gain Y resources associated with its region, where Y is the rank of this card, which is interesting. It brings the concept of rank into the game as well, where if this is the 3rd card I've built of that type, then Y would be 3, okay? That's how those work. The military cards have these new tokens called combat tokens, and they allow for really powerful maneuvers to the point that they're so powerful sometimes you have to spend these again for a really strong move. And they introduce a very interesting form of interaction in the game. Usually the power across the top is gain one of those combat tokens, and then sometimes they'll do really interesting things like this one, for example, the fortress, says that I choose an opponent and I give up my sword, put it on one of their building types, okay? And the next time, I also destroy one of those buildings. And the next time they earn one of those buildings, I also get one. There's a few different powers like that. Really interesting stuff with the military ones. And then lastly, over here, these are going to give you some gold, usually straight up, or let you draw cards or gain VPs straight up. And then they will give you some other power down here. So for instance, gain 2 gold for each wooden building on your board. And then below that it says, draw any number of cards. Each card costs you 1 gold. There's a few different ones. This one across the top it says draw cards until you have 8 in your hand. And then across the bottom the observatory says place 1 gold from your supply on another card you have played in your tableau. When you later activate that card, discard the gold and activate the card twice. Really powerful stuff. Gain 2 victory points per ship in your tableau. Lots of combos here. And that's the main thing to take away from this expansion, is that it kicks up the amount of combinations you are getting quite a bit. The combos are through the roof. You want more direct interaction? Here and here. You want more combos, more interesting ways to manipulate what's happening for you? Right here, right here. You want the temples to do more things in-game, not just be end-game triggers? You're going to absolutely get it right there. So, that's basically what you are getting in Deus Egypt. Let's go back up top and let me give you some final thoughts. Deus is one of my favorite games. It's in my top 100 games. I think it's fantastic. So yes, that is going to color my opinion of the expansion, obviously. Having said that, this expansion is unbelievable. It's one of my favorite expansions of the year. And the reason for that is because it doesn't try to fix what's, something that's not broken. It doesn't mess with the gameplay of the original game. It just gives you more of what you liked in the game. The game was card-driven anyway from the very beginning. So what's the best way to enhance it, to give you more? New cards. And in fact, you don't get just a few new cards you shuffle in, which would have made more sense, might have been what I would have come up with, right? But I'm not a game designer. Instead, they give you a whole new deck. An entire new deck that you get to mix and match. That's just great. And then those new little concepts tied to those mini decks are fantastic. I love the concept of manipulating the money up and down, and I've seen it used to great effect. I love the idea of your resources and how many of them you can carry over being limited. The military stuff. The new temples are great. It's all just unbelievable. I really like it. And the interaction in this one really gets kicked up a notch, you know. Several of those decks are going to give you a lot more direct, but mostly indirect interaction. And it just works. And I love that everyone's going to be able to find exactly what combination they want from the original cards and the new cards and play the game that they want to play, you know? For me, I'm going to be doing a lot of more exploration of this. This one is going to get a ton of play from me. Love the game. And this expansion, I think, is exactly what I wanted. More cards, more concepts, combos galore. This just nails a bunch of new combos. So I'm very psyched about it. I would definitely recommend it if you liked Deus. It's not the kind of expansion that's going to change your opinion of the original game if you did not like it. So if you don't like the original Deus, don't bother. But if you liked it and you want more, this is one to definitely get. I'm giving this one very much a seal of excellence. I recommend you go out and check it out. That is Deus, Egypt, 2 thumbs way up from me.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.